right. What's up, everybody? Jeff here from ONYX Motorbikes, and congratulations on your ONYX bike. I really quickly just want to cover a couple pro tips for you. A couple things that you should know when you first get your bike that will help you make the most of your bike, starting with things like how to turn your bike on and off, how to watch your voltage and understand that, and just a few other little quick tips. So number one, how to turn the bike on or off. So think of it this way. Your bike has two power switches, okay? Your bike should come with two key fobs and two little keys. These go to the battery cover. Your key fob controls one power switch, and this red button here on the handlebars controls the other power switch. Both of these need to be turned on in order for your bike to turn on. The red switch is pretty self-explanatory. When it's pressed in, it's on. When it's out, it's off. But the key fob, however, a little bit different. So let me explain the buttons for you here. I'll put a little overlay with a couple little labels for you. The unlock button is off. Press it once and your bike will turn off. Two little chirps and it'll chirp again. It just does that, it's okay. Whenever you're ready to ride, hop back on your bike, you simply just press the lightning bolt button twice. That's it, no complicated key patterns, just two presses on the lightning bolt and your bike will turn on. Make sure this is pressed onto the on position and you're ready to ride. Okay, so let's say you get to where you're going, maybe you're having lunch and you want to turn your bike off. You could actually do two different things. Number one, you could simply just hit this red power button and the bike is off. That works, but consider this. Number one, if somebody wants to take off with your bike or something, all they have to do is just press this red button and off they go, less secure. Or what I recommend, just leave this power button in the on position, pull out your key fob, and just simply hit that unlock button once. There you go. Now the bike is turned off and you can't turn it back on with this button. You have to have the key fob to turn the bike back on, so it's more secure that way. If you want to take it one step further, after you turn the bike off, simply press the lock button once and this will arm the alarm on the bike. If you want to disarm it, you can hit the unlock button, but while it's armed, it's motion activated. So if somebody tries to take off with the bike, alarm goes off. Hit the off button there to disarm the alarm. Let's say the bike is armed, like that, and you are now ready to go back out and ride. What do? Do you have to disarm the bike? Do you have to do some weird key sequence? No, like I said before, press the lightning bolt button twice, your bike is unarmed and powers on and you're ready to ride off. Simple. Okay, next pro tip. Let's talk about voltage. If you look on your bike's display, you'll see a little battery meter bar and you might think, okay, looks just like the gas gauge in my car. I'm just gonna look at that. It shows mostly full, not all the way full. And you know what? You wouldn't be wrong to look at that and use that to guide how much battery level you have. However, this is a calculated figure, and personally, I recommend to learn your voltage. The voltage is just above the battery meter bar right there. Voltage is an absolute number, and if you know your voltages, like how much is full, half, and low, it's just gonna make a lot more sense for you once you learn it. So, I'm gonna put up a little graph here so you can see 100% charge on your bike, it's gonna display about 84 volts. That's a full charge on a 72 volt battery, 72 volt system here. Halfway charge is about 72 volts, and your cutoff is gonna be about 59 volts, 59, 60 volts. That's important because when you're accelerating, you're gonna see that voltage number dip down a bit. We call that voltage sag. The more power you're demanding on the motor, the more power you're pulling from the battery, the more that voltage is going to sag. Now, as you start coasting and come to a stop, that voltage number will come back up and it'll level out a little bit. So you'll be good. But that's important to note because if you watch your voltage meter, once you get down to the bottom third or the bottom quarter of your voltage range, maybe you're hovering around, I don't know, 65, 64 volts or something. If you accelerate hard enough and voltage sag far enough, if that voltage sag crosses that 59 volt threshold, the battery will cut off to protect itself from any of the cells being too low. If that does happen, if the battery shuts itself off because it's protecting itself from being under voltage, what will happen is once the voltage levels out, once it comes back up, the battery will turn itself back on, says, okay, we're within safe operating parameters, turn itself back on, but you will need to use your key fob and press that lightning bolt button twice to turn the alarm kit back on, because anytime you reintroduce power to the alarm kit, whether it's the battery turning itself on and off, or if you unplug the battery and plug it back in, as soon as power is reintroduced to that alarm kit, it's going to be in the off position. Simply press the lightning bolt button twice, power will be back on. But if you are in that position, just know that you're one more voltage sag away from it cutting out again. So another thing to note, that the way a battery discharges from full to empty is not a linear line. It's more like an S curve. This means that the top 10% and the bottom 10% discharge faster than the middle of the battery. That means like when you're at, say, a full charge, 84 volts, you might see that 84 dip down to, you might end up at 82 volts or 81 volts in a matter of a couple blocks or so. Don't worry, that doesn't mean your battery is just gonna die really quick. That just means batteries like to be in their middle state of charge. So it's gonna discharge really quick at that top end, but then the meat of your range is gonna be in that mid to upper 70s to upper 60s. The way I like to think of it is, if I'm above half, 72 volts and up, I'm totally good, I'm gravy. I don't worry about anything, I'm great. Once I get below 72 volts, I'll start paying a little closer attention to the voltage on the display, making sure I'm not voltage sagging too far, but I know I still have a decent amount of range to go. And then, again, once you get closer to that 59 volts, just make sure you're not crossing that threshold. You do not need to charge your bike up to 100% after every single ride. If you're just doing 5 miles here, 10 miles there, shorter rides, if your bike is still sitting at, like right now, this one's at 79 volts, no need to top that off. Again, remember, batteries do not like to be fully charged. They like to be in the middle. So whatever you can do to keep that battery in the more middle range of its charge, the better. I like to only charge the battery, say, once I'm maybe below half. If I'm, say, at 70 volts or 69 or so, sure, I'll charge it back up. Or if I know my next ride is gonna be a very long one and I wanna start the ride with max charge, then I'll top it off, but that only then. All right, we're gonna take a quick look at how to pull the battery out of the bike. Now, you may never need to do this. Let's say if you have to park your bike one place and charge the battery inside or somewhere else, or say you're loading this up on the back of a hitch mount or something, you want to pull the battery for better weight distribution. Let's go ahead and show that. Make sure the bike's off. I'm gonna turn it off here. And for kicks, I'm just gonna go ahead and turn it off here as well. Hit that unlock button and it's off. And we're gonna take the battery cover key here, and we're gonna stick it in and just turn it 90 degrees. It might be a little sticky. Some of the fresh locks are a little sticky, so if it sticks on you, maybe try pushing down a little bit on the battery cover lock and just give it a little bit of force and it should break free on you. Once it's turned 90 degrees, next step you wanna do is you wanna push the battery cover back. That's why there's a gap in between the seat and the battery cover. That gap is there so you can slide this battery cover back that much, just enough. Let me see if I can get it on this camera to where this front end clears this little tab. Once that's cleared, you just lift up on the front and then a little bit and slide it forward and just kind of do the shimmy back and forth. And it comes right off, nice and easy. All right, now unplugging the battery. Let's see if I can get this good on camera. It's plugged in up front here, so you pretty much just need to get your fingers up in front. This is your charging cable. This actually needs to get pushed through the front end here. Now this hole shares the hole with the brake line, so sometimes you have to push the brake line out of the way, push these cables out of the way. Hopefully it gets it on this camera. I know it's a little hard to see, but I'm just gonna try and push this through. It's a tight fit. Come on, get out of the way, brake cable. There it is. Cool, I got that out. And now I'm just gonna pull these cables out. Bam, and just pull apart this connection right here. And your battery is now disconnected. You can go ahead and unstrap the battery right here. It's a little tight connection, but this buckle comes out. Make sure you have the cable sticking up. and simply lift with the front first, cables first, and once that clears, then you can slide it a little bit forward and out. Okay, putting it back in is exactly the reverse. So make sure the back end goes down first, like that. Drop the front end down. Make sure it's kind of slid back a little bit. I'm gonna go ahead and get this charging cable through first. Takes a little bit of practice sometimes. Again, there's not a ton of room to get your fingers through there, but with enough fiddling around, you'll get it through. Eventually, get that charging cable through. Let's get the power cable plugged in. Now this might make a little popping sound, so when you plug it in, there's a little pop, but don't be disturbed, that happens. That chirp's good. That means power has now reached the alarm kit. Of course, we still have to hit that lightning bolt button twice before the power's on. Shove the cables back in there, strap it back up. Got to push pretty hard sometimes. And once that is strapped in, then just put the battery cover back on just the way we kind of did it before. You want to go down. All right, get it down towards the seat side. The seat side, get that in, and then slide it forwards. There we go. Make sure you got your battery cover key here and turn it 90 degrees. Should be a tight fit. Now, if your battery cover is a little loose, this one feels great. This is nice and snug. A lot of times, all you have to do is adjust the little metal tab that's underneath here. It might be bent up too much or down too. If it's bent down too much, you're gonna have looseness back here. Just bend it up until it meets where it needs to be here. If you can't get it locked, just check and make sure maybe it's bent up too much and it's running into the side of the tab. So little adjustments will make a big difference in how snug this battery cover fits. So now I can go ahead and hit the lightning bolt button twice. Power's on, hit this guy, and our bike is on. Okay, a few other pro tips. Remember I was talking about voltage sag and how the more you accelerate or the heavier, the more draw the motor has, the more that voltage is gonna sag down in real time. I wanna talk about regen really quickly. Regen is a way of slowing your bike down. It's regen braking, much like a hybrid car. I have a Prius. It does the same thing. When you apply the brakes, the electric motor in the back is going to use the resistance of the electric motor to slow you down. At the same time, it's going to return energy from the motor into the battery. You'll know this is happening because if you look at the voltage meter on the display, you'll actually see the voltage go up instead of down. Now, regen automatically happens when you pull on the rear brake lever. You'll feel it kick in. Now, regen is on or it's off. What that means is as soon as you feel that kick in, if you pull harder on the brake lever, it's not going to increase the amount of regen braking. All it's going to do is add in that rear disc brake in the back. So if you want to ride the regen and get the most out of that and take some stress off your rear brakes, or the rear brake pads I should say, all you have to do is just pull just far enough to feel that regen engage and just hold it there. Now on the topic of the voltage, the reason this is relevant and something you should keep in mind, if you remember when I was talking about the voltage sag possibly dipping low enough, if you're at the bottom end of your battery, if that voltage sag dips low enough to cut off, hit below 59 volts, the battery, the BMS, that's the battery management system, is going to protect itself. The same thing can happen on the top end. So think of the situation. You've just topped off charging your battery at 100%, which means you're at 84 volts. You go ripping down the street and you hit your regen to slow you down. You're gonna see that voltage go up. More than likely, it's gonna go up above 84. We don't want the battery to be overcharged, so the BMS potentially could trigger an overvoltage protection mode. What will happen in that situation is you'll feel the regen just kind of cut out. Don't worry, you still have your mechanical brakes rear and in the front. So it's just something that I like to tell some of our riders, because you might be alarmed if that happens and think that you lost your brakes or something. This will only happen when you're on a very fresh charge. Once you've ridden a few miles, typically you've eaten up enough battery to have that headroom for the regen to send extra voltage back into the battery without worrying about a cutoff. So that's your regen braking. Okay, charging. Charging's usually pretty straightforward, but I got a few tips there as well. This cable that sticks out of the front, this is your charging cable. Keep this clean. Okay, we have a little holder here. I'll be the first to admit it doesn't always stick very well to the body of the bike, so just keep an eye on this. If for any reason this holder falls off and the cable's dangling, just pay attention to that. Either get a magnet or something, make sure it's fixed in, or if you want, you can just keep this connector just stashed inside the battery compartment. It'll be safer in there. The reason you don't want this just dangling out here is because, number one, dirt and debris and stuff will get inside these contacts. That's going to build up some resistance, so when you go to charge, you're not making a very good connection with the other connector, and any kind of resistance like that is going to build up heat, because you know the power is going to be like jumping just slightly from prong to the little connector here, so you don't want that heat buildup. It could end up melting this or fusing the prong to this, which means you're not going to be able to get it apart. Just bad things can happen. You want your connectors to stay clean. The other thing that can happen is, in some cases, if this cable is long enough, it could dangle and it could risk getting caught in the wheel, and it's going to get ripped out and it's going to short out your cable. It's just not good stuff. So just keep an eye on this. Make sure it stays either fixed into the holder right here, or if this is not working out for you, keep it stashed inside the battery compartment. Just take care of this, okay? Make sure it stays clean. When you're ready to charge, you know, the charger, simply just plug it into a household outlet. The little display on the charger is cool. It'll show how many volts your battery charge is at. If you remember, 84 volts is full. As soon as you plug in the charger to the battery, you will hear the fan start up on the charger. The light will go from green to red, and then the little LCD display on the charger will then go and show you the amount of voltage that's in your battery. So if you were down to, like, say 73 volts when you go to charge, the display on the charger will show 73, and then it will go up from there as it charges full. It is a good practice to always be around or nearby in case of emergency when you're charging your bike. Technically, yes, you can leave the bike charge on its own in a garage. The BMS does have all of its safeguards in case anything happens, but it's the same reason that you don't leave your oven running when you're not home. It's fine, but you know, you just in case. Just be around while it's charging. That's a couple helpful tips when it comes to charging. In addition to those ones I was talking about earlier about not needing to charge it up 100% every time. Okay, next pro tip. This is more just something to keep an eye on. I don't know about you, but every time I go to my car, I like to just kind of look at the tires, make sure I don't have like a flat tire, something like that. Just can avoid having more issues down the road. So back here, let me use this little camera to show you the second view. So this area back here, this is your phase wire. This is what sends the signal and the power and everything from the controller, the battery, to your rear motor, and it goes in right in here. You can see the motor spacer. Those are all very important parts. So I say that to just every so often keep an eye on this cable. Make sure none of these screws are coming loose or anything like that, because what would happen, you don't want this cable to get damaged, okay? You don't want it to get cut. If this gets cut, wires get exposed, they start shorting out, and that's gonna ruin your motor. So just an occasional, every couple times you get on the bike, just take a look in this area, make sure nothing's loose, make sure there's no risk of anything getting cut, and that could save you a lot of time and a lot of money in the future if you simply just keep an eye on it. Same thing with your motor mounts right here. Let me get the camera out again. These are your main axle nuts right here. This is your torque plate. This is all here to reinforce the axle from the motor. A lot of torque happens right here. So you want to make sure that these stay tight. If these ever get loose, you might see when you first accelerate, you might see this rotate a little bit. If you see any movement here at all, then you know it needs to get retightened, because there shouldn't be any movement going on here at all. If for any reason, I'm gonna get the camera in here, you look at the gap in between this side and that side of the tire, you see how it's even? That's where it should be. If for any reason you're riding and the tire looks like it's closer to here, that means, or maybe if your chain gets really loose, that might indicate that something may have come loose and now your tire is a little out of alignment. Not the end of the world. You're simply just going to want to take a 24mm socket, loosen up this guy too with a 5mm Allen, and there's a 10mm nut in the back. Get this stuff loose. Make sure you have the bike supported from up underneath, and you're just going to pull back on the wheel. Straighten, center it out, make sure both sides are nice and even like they are right now, and then torque these nuts back down. They get torqued down to about 90 Newton meters and you'll be good to go. So that's a little bit more of an advanced thing. Like I said, I'm just giving you all the pro tips. But yeah, keep an eye on this area back here and save yourself a lot of hassle. All right, one more topic. I'm gonna talk about the BMS, the battery management system, and particularly the app. I hear people talking about the BMS app all the time. Now, let me kind of explain this to you. When it comes to apps for our bikes, there is not a rider companion app. You don't need an app to operate your bike, okay? The BMS app is a diagnostics tool. It's a tool that you can use to connect to your battery. If you do want to monitor the health of the battery, look at the cells, check the temperature sensors, battery level, stuff like that, that's fine. You can do that if you want. You don't have to, okay? The other thing, let me go ahead and screen record on my phone. So if you do want to use an app, I use iPhone, so sorry if you're an Android user. The app you're going to use is down here at the bottom called the Xiaozheng BMS app. There is an ONYX BMS app. It does work, but I highly recommend just use the Xiaozheng one. It's way better. It's the only one you got to worry about. You see there's a lot of batteries showing up on here because there's a lot of batteries around. Let me find the serial number for this battery really quick. If you're using Android, it's going to be the blue elephant. It's Xiaozheng. Type it into the Google Play Store and you'll see it with the blue elephant icon. I think this QR code will take you to that app on the Google Play Store. Just note, you're not going to need the QR code on here. You don't have to scan anything actually. Just take note of your serial number. Now, if you see on my screen, you see a ton that I have to sort through because there's a lot of batteries around me, but chances are when you're with your bike, there's only going to be one battery showing up. So I match up the serial here. I see the EK, all these numbers. So on my app, I'm just going to tap and connect. Once it connects to the battery, I get to see a bunch of helpful data once it loads. There we go. On the left-hand side, our charge switch, that means the cable where we plug into charge, that is turned on. And on the right, the discharge, that's the main power plug plugged into the bike. They're both turned on. That means it's going to accept charge and power will go out of the battery. This display up top where it says 72%, and it also says 29.58 of 41 amp hours. Honestly, that's a calculated number. Again, it might show you some weird stuff. Just ignore that percentage number. Like I said earlier on, it's all about voltage. Know your voltage number. So right there in the middle, it says 81.56 or 57 volts. That's the number you're looking at, okay? Now, if we look at the bike display, you might know, hey, why does the battery say 81.56, but my bike is saying 79? That is normal. Just for the bike to be turned on, there's what we call a voltage draw. The bike itself is pulling some power from the battery. So by the time all the signal and everything gets to the display, it's going to show a slightly lower number on the display. But the battery is at 81.57 volts. Below that, you see the temperature sensors. They should all be in line like that, 29, 27 degrees Celsius. I believe the limit is up to about 70 degrees Celsius, which is very hot. That's like 150, 60, 170 degrees Fahrenheit or something like that. So it does have a wide operating temperature range. And then you got all your cells below here, 1 through 20 grouping of cells. These individual cells will go all the way from 4.2 volts at the max down to 3 volts at the minimum. They should always be in line like that. Now, a lot of people ask about balancing batteries because some people know, hey, don't batteries need to be balanced? These 41 amp hour batteries balance themselves, okay? So you don't actually have to worry about going through balancing procedures or anything along those lines. So it does all the work for you. Don't even worry about it. And then just here's some history at the bottom. That's it. If you want to monitor that, cool. If you have any questions about it, definitely you can message ONYX here, let us know. We'll be happy to talk to you about it. But again, this app is just for diagnostic purposes. If you don't ever want to use this app, you don't have to. Don't worry about it. Okay, one other topic I wanted to touch on has to do with the front tires. One thing I hear fairly common, people say, hey, my front tire is wobbly. So let me talk about that very briefly. Number one, 99.9% of the time, your wheel is not wobbly. Well, the metal part, the wheel itself. What most often people are seeing is the tire or the rubber itself. There's a little center line down here on the street tires. The dirt tires, you don't notice it so much. But because there's a line straight down the middle of these street tires, if there's any kind of unevenness, you're gonna see it kind of wobble a little bit like this. That's completely normal for a few reasons. Number one, these are moped tires. There's inner tubes in here. These are not car tires. Car tires have way higher speed and all sorts of ratings to them. They have to be perfectly balanced, perfectly aligned. Same thing with like performance motorcycles and stuff. This is not that. This is a moped tire, more similar to like just a beefy bicycle tire. So it's very common that these tires aren't always 100% perfectly seated on the rim. We do our best to get them aligned, but there's always going to be some variance there. They're not always going to be perfect. So a little bit of wobble on the tire is totally normal. Now, if you personally feel like maybe it's worse than you want it to be, or you think it could be improved, one thing you can try doing is to fully deflate the tire. You're going to take the valve stem, even remove the valve stem, or just deflate the tire completely flat. Maybe get a little bit of that soapy water around the rim and all that to where you can kind of massage the tire and kind of get it to slip around a little bit. And then fill it up a little bit, have a little bit, maybe like 5 to 10 PSI, and kind of ride very slowly on the tire to kind of get it to move around and sit in the middle. And then after you massage the tire a little bit, reinflate it. You might get the tire to sit a little bit more evenly on the rim. It might not be perfect. Just know that they're always going to look a little bit wobbly. It doesn't mean that there's anything wrong with the tire. That's just how they are. And so I just wanted to mention that. Of course, if you feel like there's something beyond what I'm describing, contact ONYX, let them know. Maybe send them a video if you do feel something is off, but otherwise it's nothing to be worried about. All right, I think that covers most of the pro tips. If you have any questions beyond this, obviously, go on to onyxmotorbikes.com, hit that little chat bubble at the bottom of the screen, type in your name, your phone number, send us a message, and we'll get back to you as soon as possible. But I really do hope that some of this information really helps kind of kickstart your riding adventures and give you some useful information that may not have been apparent when you first got your bike. So wear a helmet, stay safe out there, and most of all, have fun, enjoy the ride, and I'm out of here. Peace.